Class, this is a tutorial on how to create your Eclipse project files and how to be able to find where the main is so that you can actually run these projects. This is one of the most common questions that I get during the first 2 or 3 weeks of class. So if you have any problems, please follow these instructions. First, I'm going to show you the proper way to create a project. So you're going to go into File, New, Java Project. Then you're going to give it a name. I will call this one test. Oh, I've already got, so did you notice how it's grayed? I can't actually create it. That's because this folder already exists. So let me call it creation. And now I know that that folder doesn't exist. By the way, let me get back to it and I'll show you what happens if you want to get rid of that folder so that you can actually create it. But let's go ahead and always use project folder as root for sources and class files. This really simplifies things later when you have text files to work with. We're going to create call finish. Now there are two ways to create the class file, but I'm going to show you with the Package Explorer. I always recommend doing it with the Package Explorer because you are guaranteed to have it work. So you're going to right click on the Package Explorer, click New Class. And now you need to use the exact same name as your source folder as for the name of this class. You probably want to create a main. Pretty much you always want to create a main, and you want to finish. Now notice I left the packages blank here, and also when you create the project, do not here, let me go back and show you. Okay, so this now is a working function, and I can just do hello, just to show you that it runs. And when you create your projects, always check to make sure that your projects actually are in a runnable state. Because it's very easy to end up with a disembodied Java file that is not part of a project. So it only takes a second, so please run your projects as soon as you create them and as you go through creating them. Okay, so let me show you a couple of errors that you can make along the way now. So let me go ahead and delete this first of all. I'm going to delete this, but I'm not going to delete the project contents. So I'm going to delete that. Now I'm going to try to recreate this, and I'll show you what happens. Okay, so I created a new Java project, and I call it creation. And you notice that it's grayed out. You could be here a long time without having that work. So how do you solve this problem? So what you're going to have to do is you're going to actually have to go into the folder where these source files are and delete that folder. So hold on a second. Let me go to another project in here. And let me open up my default package. Let me open up this tutorial. Actually, I don't actually even have to open up the source file. It all happens from the Package Explorer. So if you right-click on this and then click Properties, it actually brings up the directory where all your files are. And you can actually click this button here, and it'll open it up. Now, from here, I can actually go back up a couple of directories, and here I see that there is still this creation folder. So now I can go ahead and delete that folder. It's gone. Now when I close this, and now let's try to do that again. File, New, Project, Creation. And now it'll work. All right, another thing that can go wrong is, first of all, don't worry about this. This just tells it which Java runtime to use. You might have more than one installed, but it doesn't matter. As long as you use any of them, that's fine. This project layout, again, always choose using the project folder as root for both sources and class files. If you were to go into next, you can get yourself into a heap of trouble because you may accidentally click allow out, or no, not that. This create module info.java. So it depends on your version, but this may be checked by default, and you don't want to do that. You do not want to create a module info.java file. If it asks you if you want to create one, do not create one. You don't want to use modules. You don't want to use packages. They're great features for advanced programmers, but they just make things harder for you to find. So again, once you create the folder, just click Finish. Now, the other way you can do, you can create the class files. You can do File, New, Class. Okay, it actually defaulted correctly. Here, sometimes it won't come up with the package, with the source folder, so then you'll have to browse for it. And then it just becomes harder to link it in. So I'm going to try creating this again, but this time I'm not going to create my main. Okay, so lots of people have problems with their files because they don't know where to create the main. In my class, I like to have people create many classes in one file so that I only have one file to deal with. And you can do that if you create it without public. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this other file, this other class test. Okay, first of all, it's going to complain that I've got two public files, two public classes. So let's get rid of that. So this will now work. But the question is, where is it going to find the main? So if I create the main here, if I go ahead and create this main here, and I click run, this will find it. Hey, great, no problem. And then later I say, oh, you know what? I actually don't want to put that here. I want to put it over here. And now I try running it. It can't find it because it's already learned that main is going to be in here. So that's why you want to create main in your first public class. That way it trains it where it is. There is a way to fix this. You can select Run Configurations, and then you can select the project creation, and you can tell it which class has the main in it. I guess that's, we're going to have to actually tell it manually. So it's called creation. So if I tell it creation, boy, this dialog is really big. There we go. Now it finds it. Now the problem is that if your main is not in the same class as the file name, and you give it to me, when I load this, it is not going to work for me because I haven't told it where main is, and when I load it and try to run it, it will complain that it can't find main. So the rule is hard and fast in my class. The name of the file has to be the same as the name of the public class, which has to be the same as the place where you run the main. Now, there's also the question of when I tell you to create a project, call it inventory, call it inheritance, call it sets and maps or whatever, that is the name that should be in that public class here, and that should have the main in it. And this is really the client class here. Whereas the classes that you're creating are demonstrating your own classes, they should not have main. As I mentioned, this is only the way that I want to create classes for use in my class. Normally, and I do definitely, when I create a project, a real project, I will put each class in its own file. It's an important thing to do in real life, but obviously otherwise we'd have to worry about packages, etc. Zip files. So I don't want to do that. But in real life, every single class would be in its own file. It would be public so that anyone can use it. Last thing is the name of the class. Does it really matter whether I call it creation with a capital or with a lowercase, or spell it slightly different, or just give it a whole different name and whole different name of the file? Yes, it does matter, because when you submit your files to me, I copy the body of those files and paste them into a project like this one right here. So let's suppose I had a creation homework, and somebody decides to call their creation homework my creation homework. Okay, so I go in here, I copy all of your code, I copy it out of here, I paste it into my project, which is a running project, and I try to run it, and it's not going to work. Why? Because there is no creation class, right? You created the my creation class. So please follow the instructions exactly on how to create the class. Use the name. That name is going to be the name of the Java file that you submit, as well as the public class, and that's the same location as the main. Don't worry when you submit it by Canvas and it renames it -1, -2, whatever. That's perfectly normal to be expected, and that won't affect the ability of me to run your code, because inside the file it's still called creation. So hopefully that will settle some issues that you've been having with creating projects.